The word quadratic is the adjective relating to a square. X to the power 2 is the index notation for x times x, and x times x is the area of a square whose sides are x. So x to the power 2 is the area of a square and is therefore quadratic. X to the power 2 is spoken as the square of x. It is the simplest quadratic and is called a complete square. We'll now construct the general complete square. We start with the variable x and add to it a constant. We'll use the letter p as a placeholder for this constant. Now square the sum. Next we multiply by a constant. We'll use the letter a as a placeholder for this constant. Finally, adding a constant to the product, we'll use the letter q as a placeholder for this constant. This is the general complete square. There are two other forms of quadratic expression: standard form and factor form. Both these forms are developed from a complete square. We'll do this now, beginning with the standard form. Consider the general complete square. We can write this as multiplying out the last two factors gives multiplying through by a and collecting like terms gives a times the square of x, add twice the product of a and p and x, add a times the square of p, to which we add q. Replacing the coefficient of x with b and a constant term with c, we have an expression which is equivalent to the original complete square. Therefore, this expression is also quadratic and is said to be in standard form. Consider the first term of a quadratic expressed in complete square form. We can write this as the product of a and two identical factors. By making the constant in each of the last two factors different, say r and s, we have an expression which is the product of three different factors: a, the sum of x and r, and the sum of x and s. Multiplying out the last two factors gives multiplying through by a and collecting like terms gives a times the square of x, add a times the sum of r and s times x, add a times the product of r and s. Replacing the coefficient of x with b and the constant term with c, we have a quadratic in standard form. Therefore, the original expression is quadratic and is said to be in factor form. In summary, an expression which contains the square of the variable and no higher power is quadratic. Quadratics can be expressed in three forms: the complete square form, standard form, and factor form. The complete square and factor forms can be changed to standard form by simply expanding and collecting like terms. As we shall see in the next two topics, quadratic equations and quadratic graphs, we need to be able to change a quadratic expressed in standard form to complete square and factor forms. Doing so is more involved and is the subject of the next two videos.